In this video, we're going to go over whether or not you need to file an income tax return. So the Internal Revenue Code says that certain taxpayers may not need to file a tax return at all. Specifically, if your income, your gross income, your taxable income is below a certain threshold, if you earn so little that basically your standard deduction nullifies any income that you would be taxed on, then you don't really need to file an income tax return. So a lot of times this might be people that are uh, living in retirement, that their primary source of income is Social Security, might be people that are living off of a windfall or their retirement savings, and they're able to just manage their life without realizing a lot of taxable income. So you can either figure this out for yourself in the instructions for IRS Form 1040, or you can go to the IRS website and you can walk through their interactive tax assistant tool. So one of the tools on this website is, do I need to file a tax return? There's not a lot of information you need. You need your filing status. You need to know how much federal income tax might have been withheld. And then you might need some basic information that'll help you determine your gross income. So even if you don't have to pay taxes, you may still need to file an income tax return if the sources of income you had actually had tax withholdings, and filing a return would result in a refund. Because most likely, if you don't file a return, you're not going to get that refund. Now, as a disclaimer, a couple of disclaimers. One, this tool is designed for U.S. taxpayers, like U.S. citizens or resident aliens. There is another part of this website that discusses tax complexities for international taxpayers, people such as non-residents or dual status aliens. That is outside of the scope of this specific tax tool. So, and then the other disclaimer is that any conclusions are based on information that you provided in response to the questions that you answered. So please note that anything that you do on the Interactive Tax Assistant anywhere on the IRS website, it's not recorded. It doesn't keep your personal information. If you do put in information, it gets scrubbed out as soon as you back out of the website. So it should take, it says 12 minutes to complete this form. We'll test that. I don't think it'll take us the full 12 minutes, but we'll walk through a couple of scenarios and we'll see where we end up. So let's go ahead and start. All right, so now we've moved to the tax page. Do I need to file a tax return? Now this is for 2022, 2021, or 2020 for previous year tax returns. We're in tax year 2023. However, this probably will update sometime in 2024 when people start filing their income tax returns for 2023. So let's pretend we're talking about the 2022 tax year. The first question, what is your tax filing status? So whenever you see these highlighted blue fields, you can click on them and it'll open up a different page. And in this case, it says your filing status determines your tax rate, the amount of deductions, and your eligibility for certain credits. So that kind of was a no-brainer in that a married couple filing a joint tax return is probably going to get a slightly bigger tax preference or a tax break or a deduction than a single taxpayer. It doesn't always end up being a 2-for-1 scenario. There is a concept known as the marriage penalty, where a married couple doesn't exactly receive twice as much credit, but that's part of the tax law. So what can you do? Now, did you receive Social Security benefits in the tax year? So let's take a look at Social Security benefits. What do they include? So it includes retirement benefits, your traditional Social Security, survivor benefits if you're a surviving spouse. It also includes Social Security disability. It doesn't include SSI, like supplemental security income, even though that's administered by the Social Security Administration, doesn't include that. If you don't know what SSI is a specific security income for specifically for significantly lower income taxpayers. So this doesn't include benefits that you might have received for a dependent child, for example. So let's just say, yes, you did. What was the total amount of your Social Security benefits? You should receive Form SSA 1099, or if you're a railroad retirement worker, then it would be on Form RRB 1099. So let's just say you receive $5,000 of Social Security benefits during the year. Then you would answer how much were your pensions, wages, interest, dividends, other taxable income. Let's just say $10,000. Did you have any tax-exempt interest? So let's see what tax-exempt interest looks like. Tax-exempt interest is interest on a bond, usually for financing government operations. If it's issued by a state, the District of Columbia, a U.S. possession, or like a local municipality. So it could be port authorities, toll road commissions, utilities. There are certain circumstances if you get down into the long tail part of this, obligations that aren't secured by a bond, that might be tax exempt under certain situations. Indian tribal governments, original issue discount. The good news is if you don't know what any of that means, then you don't have to worry about it because you probably don't have it. So in this case, let's just say that we did have tax exempt interest from a couple of municipal bonds, and that ended up being $2,000. Now you're going to ask about qualified U.S. savings bonds, where the interest may be excluded if you cash them under an educated savings bond program. So if you redeem those bonds, how much of that interest was not included in taxable interest? Now, if you didn't have savings bonds, if you included them as taxable income, or whatever the case may be, you can just hit 0 and move on. Did you receive any employer-provided adoption benefits? I didn't adopt a kid, so we'll just say no. And then we'll put down my birthday. Not really, but something close enough to where my tax situation's probably not going to change a whole lot. All right, we'll put down my spouse's date of birth, but not really. Again, not so much that it's going to significantly change the outcome of any of this. Can we be claimed as dependents on another taxpayer's tax return, like our parents? Can my spouse be claimed? Nope. Did my spouse die during the tax year? Nope. Did I live with my spouse all the way up until the last day of the tax year? Yep. What was our gross income? So gross income happens to be, let's see, all the income in the form of money, goods, properties, services. Right before this video, I was actually taking a look at publication 550. It says if you received a bribe during the tax year, you have to declare that as part of your gross income. So unfortunately, that also includes bribes. I'm not sure how many congressmen are aware of that, but that is the truth. So you can include part of your Social Security benefits if you were married, filing a separate return, and you lived with your spouse at any time during the tax year, or if half of your Social Security benefits plus your other gross income is more than either $25,000 for a single taxpayer or $32,000 for a married couple filing jointly. So beneath that threshold, none of your Social Security benefits are taxable. So let's go back to this. Let's just say that our gross income was $20,000. Did we sign up for health insurance through the marketplace? Nope. Did we claim a first-time home buyer credit on our prior year tax return? That has to be repaid. Nope. What was our employment status? Let's just say neither. And do we owe recapture taxes? Well, if you're wondering what recapture taxes are, it is previously claimed tax credits that you may have to recover in the case of certain, like if you took a tax credit, but then you no longer, and that tax credit applies for multiple years, and now you no longer qualify for that, you might have to recognize that you no longer qualify for that tax credit, and you might have to pay back some of that tax, or at least have that deducted from your refund if you're owed a refund. So in this case, we're going to say no, we don't owe recapture. We didn't receive distributions from a health savings account, an Archer MSA, or a Medicare Advantage MSA. We're not liable for alternative minimum tax, although if you wanted to look it up, you can find information about AMT, which you would find on IRS Form 6251. So if you've never had to file IRS Form 6251, then you generally are not liable for AMT. So the IRC 965 election, basically it means that some taxpayers may have to pay a tax on certain untaxed foreign earnings of certain foreign corporations that they directly or indirectly own. So in other words, this was kind of a big deal around 2017, 2018 timeframe where certain taxpayers or companies would move overseas to drive down their tax liability. I think a big example was Apple moving a significant amount of their operations to a country like Ireland to avoid the taxes. So this was kind of closing that loophole. And if you've never heard of this, then you probably have never had that election. Do you owe write-in taxes? What is a write-in tax? Write-in taxes include all of these: additional Medicare tax, net investment income tax, so recapture of certain tax credits. So if any of those apply, then you would say yes. In this situation, for the first time we're going through this, I'm just going to try and get through the form so that we can see what this looks like. Are we liable for an additional tax on a qualified plan, such as an IRA? We'll say no. Are we liable for household employment taxes, like if we had a housekeeper and we went through whether or not that housekeeper was a 1099 independent contractor, or whether or not we had to issue a W-2 and pay employment tax on top of their compensation? We're going to say no. Did you receive a Form 1099-B? This would be proceeds from trading stocks, for example. We'll say no. Did we have federal tax income tax withheld? So it says you're not required to file a tax return, but you should file one because the return may generate a tax refund, right? So in other words, you don't have to file one. The IRS isn't going to come after you, but you might not get your refund if you don't. So briefly, I'll walk through all of these. All of these ones in purple are items that we asked and kind of looked into. The ones in blue are still the ones that we haven't. But all of these fields, you can go back and take a look at them and dive deeper if you want to. So we're not going to go back through extra scenarios just because there are so many questions here. And just know that for most taxpayers, if you're answering no to a lot of these items, you're probably not going to be required to file an income tax return. It pretty much is based on income and the tax complexity of your specific situation. So if you're the kind of person that you receive a modest pension, if you receive Social Security but not too much, if you invest in tax-free bonds but you don't get too much money, and you've got a decent amount of retirement savings that you're kind of slowly working through, you're probably not required to file an income tax return in a lot of those type of situations. If you've ever had to pay like additional Medicare tax, net investment income tax, if you've got high IRA balances and you're starting to withdraw your required minimum distributions, unless you start engaging in next level tax planning, you probably will be required to file a tax return. And I would say again, if you've ever had taxes withheld, you should file a tax return, even if you don't owe tax, because you might find out that you're owed a refund. And the only way that you're going to find that realistically is by filing that income tax return. If you never file a tax return, then the IRS will never come back behind you to calculate your tax liability. And they might do it at some point when they kind of do an assessment, but I wouldn't count on them to do that. So make sure that you go through this, you take a look at this with a critical eye. You can always print out these questions, but I would take a look at this and say, hey, do I have a health savings account? I'm pretty sure I had one. What are the requirements there? What about this first-time home buyer credit, or what's this alternative minimum tax? Like, ask those questions about your situation so that you learn a little bit more about all of that. So let's go back to the interactive tax assistant page. And again, you can find this as well as a lot of other really great resources that we're covering with a series of videos, but you can walk through these all by yourself. So simply go to irs.gov/help/ITA, and you can access the interactive tax assistant just like any other red-blooded taxpayer. So you can find a lot of these walkthrough videos that we're creating on our YouTube channel. They're under IRS resources, simply because I'm not limiting myself to just the interactive tax assistant. As I find stuff out there on the IRS website, I'm creating videos so we can share it with you. So, and if you need help with anything, specifically tax forms and schedules, odds are pretty high that we've written an article about it. So check out our website. Simply go to teachmepersonalfinance.com, type in IRS form, whatever the number of the form is. Odds are pretty high that we've written an article that covers it. And if not, please hit me up in the comments section or send me an email, and I'll put it on my list if it's not already there. So if you like our articles, please subscribe to our newsletter. If you like our YouTube video tutorials, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. And as always, if you have any questions or comments, hit me up in the comments section. Thank you very much and have a great day.